You remain silent and try to focus on something important, but your thoughts wander like a hungry dog. They return to the same place, to an image, a memory, a fantasy. You try to push them away, but they return stronger. You think it's just desire, lust, a simple impulse. What if I told you it's deeper? You're not just turned on, you're stuck. And the worst part is, you don't even know why. Most men today don't control their minds. They think it's normal to live with their heads full of desire. But it's a symptom of what Jung called repressed desire and an active shadow. Sex doesn't rule you for nothing. It's the messenger of a forgotten part of yourself. Carl Jung was clear: what you don't bring to consciousness returns as destiny. And that's exactly what happens with desire. If you repress it, it doesn't disappear. It descends into the subconscious and begins to control you from the depths of your being. You think you have desire, but it's already been hijacked. In this video, you'll discover why your mind sexualizes itself, even against your will, what desire is trying to tell you, and what happens when you ignore it. How repression fuels addiction and sabotages your energy. What Jung revealed about transforming desire into perfection. And finally, how to escape the cycle of sexual thoughts without a fight. This video is for men tired of living dominated by their urges. For men in search of energy, focus, and true meaning. For men who have understood that sex is not the problem, but what to do with this sacred energy. If you're on a quest, if you are ready to descend into the depths of your soul and illuminate your subconscious, stay until the end. The answer you seek lies not in your desires, but in your fears. An inner force demands your attention. It doesn't express itself in words. It whispers through images. It appears when you lie down, when you try to concentrate, when you are alone. It is a vibration that begins in the abdomen, rises up the back, reaches the eyes, and transforms into recurring thoughts, impulses, fantasies, and desires. But what is desire? As Jung would say, it's more than a wish. It's a coded message from the depths of the psyche. And like any symbolic message, it requires interpretation, not control or denial. But listen, modern man is used to being distracted. When desire calls you, you open your phone, check the screen, masturbate, pretend you've solved the problem, but you only postpone it because the desire returns stronger, as if to say, you still don't understand me. Jung wrote that repressed content doesn't disappear, but sinks into the unconscious and takes on a form of its own. An incomprehensible desire becomes a shadow, and this shadow demands our attention. It takes control of your mind without asking permission, and you think about sex even without wanting to, not out of weakness, but because something inside you yearns to be included. Desire is, at its lowest level, a pleasurable impulse, but at its highest, a call for transformation. It wants you to respond to it, not to satisfy it, but to understand it. The sex-addicted mind isn't sick. It's disconnected from its center. It gravitates toward images because it has lost the axis of its soul. And what is that axis? Meaning, transcendence, mission, presence. When a person lacks direction, they seek sensations. When they lack the sacred fire, they settle for artificial sparks. And these sparks are addictive. Pornography is addictive, as are fantasy and recognition, because they are shadows of the primordial fire, of creative energy, life energy, sexual energy, created to create, to move, to build, to lead, but which becomes addictive if it does not find a higher channel. Jung believed that libido was not only sexual, but a fluid life energy that could manifest as desire, creativity, and belief. The problem isn't desire itself. The problem is when it doesn't find a channel and slips through the mind's net. You think you're tempted, but perhaps you're being called to look within, to discover what's blocking you, called to transform the energy that holds you back into liberating power. Every excessive desire hides a symbolic message. You've forgotten who you are. And when you forget, your body tries to remind you with urges, insomnia, sexual distractions, and uncontrolled emotions. Because desire is not only physical, it is also spiritual. It is that part of you that yearns for union, not with a woman's body, but with yourself. The true seeker doesn't run away from desire. He confronts it, listens to it, interprets it, and little by little his mind begins to change. Sex ceases to be an obsession and becomes a powerful, controlled and luminous energy. We stop chasing it and begin to carry something that others can feel. This is the invisible call of desire. This is not an invitation to slavery, but an opportunity to awaken. For ultimately, according to Jung, the encounter with oneself is the encounter with God. Fasan, and sometimes this encounter begins with a simple question: why can't I stop thinking about it? Pleasure is the soul's most subtle trap. It comes without chains or threats. It promises relief, love, peace, but it only offers distraction. How many times have you sought pleasure only to feel the weight of emptiness? Masturbation, pornography, and fantasies seem harmless. After all, they're just a click away. They don't affect anyone. It's just a moment. But this moment comes at a price: life energy. Carl Jung said that anything we compulsively pursue is a symbolic substitute for something we've lost. In the case of instant gratification, the connection to the mission itself is lost. People without a sense of purpose become slaves to sensory perception, because without a clear direction, the mind seeks escape routes, and pleasure is the easiest solution. But there's a problem. The more you run away, the weaker you become. Your mind, constantly given over to pleasure, loses its clarity. Your vision blurs, your energy dissipates. Your body is filled with a frenzy of urgency, fear, and guilt. And what effect does this have on the outside world? Rejection, disinterest, unattractiveness. Because even before anyone hears you, people perceive who you are. Men addicted to lust have a powerful aura. It's not their scent or their clothes, but their energy, the invisible field surrounding their body, that reveals what's going on in their minds. And that's why many are frustrated. They read books, try to gain confidence, learn buzzwords, but are constantly rejected because they try to change their appearance without changing their essence. Misdirected desire destroys the essence. Do you feel empty after just one orgasm? It's not a coincidence. It's a sign. A sign that something sacred is being ruined. Sexual energy is the energy of creation. It's a divine fire. But if you light that fire every day just to warm a screen, you're burning yourself out from the inside. Jung warned us that unquenched instincts return in force. When pleasure becomes a compulsion, it takes over the psyche. We believe we are in control. But what guides us now is the promise of coming liberation. We become servants of our own bodies. And without spiritual guidance, the body becomes a prison. Therefore, those seeking self-mastery must understand one thing: repression is not the right path. Denying desire only strengthens your shadow, but feeding it with easy pleasures enslaves you. The path lies in the transmutation, elevation, and conscious channeling of this energy. When you feel desire, you have two choices: spend or transform. By spending, you liberate yourself, but you lose energy. By transforming, you grow, but you must resist. And this resistance is the battleground where true masculinity is forged. Jung saw desire as a call to individuation, the process of becoming a complete person. And no one is complete when guided by blind instincts. Pleasure is an illusion of freedom. But self-control is the gateway to true power. When you begin to resist, something changes. Your gaze calms. Your body radiates magnetism. Your mind focuses, and the world recognizes you. Women see you differently. Men respect you more. The universe begins to react differently, because you are no longer a servant of pleasure. You are a warrior. And the warrior knows that desire is sweet, but he also knows that it can be poison. That's why he makes his decision. And every true decision requires sacrifice, but that sacrifice turns into strength. For Carl Jung, sexual desire is never just a desire. It's a symbol. It designates a void, an absence, an open wound in the soul that the body tries to fill with desire. But in truth, it's not the body that's starving, but the psyche. Most men believe that desire is biologically determined, period. But behind every desire lies a psyche that craves reconciliation, rejection, lack of self-esteem, emotional abandonment, and unacknowledged need. These are the ghosts that hide behind uncontrollable libidos. And you know where they live? In the shadows. Jung defined the shadow as everything the conscious. Mind rejects repressed anger, denied sadness, ignored loneliness. All of this disappears to the back of the mind, but it doesn't disappear. It transforms, and one of the shadow's favorite disguises is sex. You think you desire a body, but in reality, you yearn for a connection you don't know how to establish. You think you want pleasure, but deep down you yearn for acceptance, recognition, strength. But because these parts are denied, sexual desire takes over. It becomes the symbol of what is missing. The mind then begins to fantasize, creating scenes, stories, faces, not to give life but to numb the senses. You don't desire this woman. You desire what she represents, the energy she symbolizes. You yearn to feel accepted, desired, and respected. But since you haven't found it within yourself, you try to find it in her body, and this quest is endless. Because it's not about the woman, but about your inner incompleteness. The shadow of desire is like a dirty mirror. You see desire, but not the reflection of what's missing within you. And that's the crux of the problem. While you run from your pain, you seek pleasure. While you avoid silence, you cling to sexual sounds. Until you accept your shadow, it will use sex to control your mind. Jung was blunt. Enlightenment is not achieved by imagining figures of light, but by becoming aware of darkness, and the darkness that dominates the minds of men today is that of misinterpreted desire. The solution is to observe this shadow and discover what desire is telling you. Do you have the urge to masturbate daily? What feelings are you avoiding? Are you consuming too much pornography? What is behind this ignorance of your own worth? Only when you are aroused do you feel alive. So what died inside you? These questions are portals to the inside, to the pain, to the truth, and the truth sets you free. The man who faces his burning shadow begins to understand that sex was only a symbol. That fantasy was only a disguise. That obsession was only a scream. And in that moment, desire loses its throne. It doesn't disappear, but it ceases to dominate. From now on, it is the human being who commands, and he commands because he has integrated what he lacks. He hasn't magically cured himself, but he has stopped running away. And this strengthens him. It's not control, it's presence, because desire, once accepted and understood, transforms. It ceases to be a shadow to become a flame, a creative fire, a center of interest, a vital force. But as long as you ignore it, it will continue to disguise itself as desire and trap you in a vicious cycle of repetition. Liberation lies not in fighting desire, but in the courage to look within and accept it. What I am trying to fill with sex is precisely what I am meant to heal. Masculine energy in its purest essence is not desire, but presence, guidance, the ability to stand firm in the midst of chaos, to stay focused when everything tells you to flee, to protect, to build, to lead, even in fear. But something strange is happening to men today. They are tired, unfocused, fragile. Despite their muscles, their beards, and their firm posture, an emptiness lives within them, an emptiness that consumes everything they touch. It is a sign of the exhaustion of the inner warrior. Jung said that every man carries within him an archetype of strength, the warrior, the king, the creator. But these archetypes don't develop on their own. They require vital energy, and this energy is consumed by instant desire, frantic masturbation, and the constant attempt to lose control. Do you think you're relaxing by masturbating? But what's happening inside is a waste of energy. Imagine a kingdom with high walls, a powerful army, and abundant reserves. Now imagine a leaky pipe whose reservoir empties day after day. At first glance, this may seem insignificant, but over time the kingdom collapses. This is exactly what happens to a man who unwittingly wastes his sexual energy. You feel tired, you lose your charm, your mind weakens, your eyes lose their sparkle, your will weakens, and worst of all, you lose confidence. For every unconscious desire communicates with the soul. You are not strong enough to wait. Then the soul listens and begins to doubt. And doubt destroys the roots of masculinity. But there's a secret few know. Repressing sexual energy isn't about what you give up, but what you build with the remaining energy. Every time you hold back, not out of repression, but out of awareness, you accumulate power. Creative power, decisiveness, the ability to look someone in the eye without bowing their head. This is the way of the inner warrior. The warrior does not run away from temptation. They face it, not because they don't feel it, but because they feel it and decide what to do next. Masculine energy needs control to flourish. It cannot be wasted like water on cracked earth. It needs guidance, and this direction stems from a specific goal. Do you want to overcome your addiction to desire? Then find something bigger than yourself. Something that motivates you, that challenges you, that pushes you to get out of bed with burning eyes. Because as long as you live a comfortable, aimless life, sexual desire will be paramount. He will divert your attention, and you will remain a well-trained slave. But the man who recognizes his energy understands, I am the keeper of my power, And this power is not just sexual. It is spiritual, creative, and strategic. It is the force that moves empires, creates legacies, and inspires other men. And it all begins when you say no to momentary weakness and yes to future greatness. The warrior within isn't forged easily. It's forged through endurance, discipline, and the sacred solitude that precedes the brilliance of leadership. And even when the world doesn't understand you, even when it mocks you, questions you, and tries to distract you, hold fast, because you carry a flame within you that no one else sees, but which illuminates every step you take. This is awakened masculine energy, and it only grows when we stop wasting it on carnal pleasures that only exhaust us and direct it toward what elevates us. At a certain stage in a man's life, fighting desire becomes pointless. Neither giving in to it nor repressing it, nor pretending it doesn't exist is useless. This moment is not one of weakness but of maturity, for true power comes not from control, but from transmutation. To transmute means to transform substance without destroying its essence. It is to take the pure energy of desire and transmute it into something higher. It is to understand that this same burning fire can also purify. Carl Jung knew that desire is not an enemy, but a symbol, a fuel, a raw material for transformation. Sexual energy is the most intense force in the human body. It is inherently creative, and all creative energy can be channeled into the mind. But to achieve this, one must learn to resist fire without getting burned. And this requires three things: awareness, stillness, inner awareness, and a higher channel. Awareness is the first step. You must understand that your energy is not trash but gold. What you feel when you are aroused is not just sexual desire. It is the calling of your pure potential. Jung said that without psychic energy, nothing happens. What he called libido was not just about sex, but about the life force that animates everything, the will to live, to create, to evolve. If this energy is wasted, life atrophies, but if it is elevated, the soul grows. The second stage then is inner silence. Transmutation does not occur in noise. You need a space where you can observe the impulse without judging it. You feel it, but you don't rush to resolve it. You observe and breathe. This moment of pause is sacred. Here the impulse loses control and the mind takes over. Then comes the third stage, the higher channel. You don't give importance to the desire. You give it importance. Art, writing, career, mission, physical activity, service to others, spiritual creation. Any desire without a guide becomes a compulsion. But when you give your energy a noble purpose, it expands. You feel more alive, stronger, more centered. Your perspective shifts. Your voice gains strength. Others perceive something different, and that something has a name, a transformed presence. Those who have transformed their desire have nothing left to prove. He carries within him an inner frequency that speaks for him. He can remain silent while dominating his environment, for his energy has been refined, polished, sublimated. The fire still burns, but now on the right altar. The ancient masters knew this. This is why monks, warriors, and sages practiced celibacy, not out of denial but out of channeling. They understood that the energy of sex is the same as that which ignites the spirit. And you, what have you done with yours? You have two choices. Either it descends and consumes you, or it rises and transforms you. To transmute is to choose the second path. It is to be man enough to say, I am not my desire. I am the force that determines the destiny of this energy. And this decision changes everything. It's not magic, it's a daily practice, an energetic discipline, a devotion to one's own power. And the more you practice, the more you feel that fire is not the enemy, but the master. It is the alchemist. For the same fire that consumes the weak also elevates the strong. There is a kind of being that does not need to shout. He doesn't need to boast, conquer, or attract attention. He arrives and something changes in his surroundings. People listen to him without him saying a word. Women notice him before he even looks at them. Men respect him without knowing why. This is the power of silent magnetism, and it springs from an invisible source, self-control. Carl Jung would say that this power arises from integration, from the union of desires, instincts, reason, and spirit. When a man stops fighting against himself and begins to control his energy, the field around him begins to vibrate differently. Have you ever noticed how naturally attractive some men are? It's not a matter of beauty or status, but of energy. And this energy arises from inner righteousness. It's as if the body carries a solid, dense, and clear frequency. A man who is in control of his sexuality has a steady gaze. He isn't distracted by any stimulus. He doesn't bow to any compliment. He doesn't seek validation because he has already validated himself. This kind of presence is rare, which is why it's magnetic. Most men live in a mental fog, with scattered thoughts, sexual fantasies, and constant frustration. This creates a subtle but perceptible field. Women feel it, their bosses feel it, their clients feel it, because everything that's wrong with them vibrates around them. But when a man exercises self-control, moderates his energy, channels his desires, and thinks before acting, something changes. The mind calms, the body strengthens, the soul harmonizes, and the world perceives without words, without effort, without results. This is the secret of men who live a mission. They don't beg for attention. They attract it, not out of yearning, but because they exist, and that is the key. We don't attract what we desire, but what we are. If we are chaos, we attract confusion. If we are empty, we attract anxiety. If we are firm, we attract peace. If we are whole, we attract fulfilled women. And it all starts with managing our energy. When we expend everything we feel, when we give in to uncontrolled pleasure, when we flee discomfort, our magnetic field weakens. But if you practice perseverance, determination, focus, and presence, if you train your mind like a warrior and live with determination, you will become a man of weight, not only physically, but existentially, with present seriousness and serene strength. A man who speaks little but whose every word is heard, who looks you in the eye without hesitation, and who maintains his serenity even in the face of difficulties. This is true magnetism, and it can't be bought, learned through short videos, or imitated. It's acquired through discipline, self-awareness, lonely nights, and decisive decisions in the face of temptation. And when you become that man, you no longer need to chase him, because the entire universe begins to listen to you, to notice you, to conspire in your favor, not because you're special, but because you're aligned. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming a complete being, is not a social achievement, but an inner alignment. And it is this alignment that makes the world listen. Even in silence, there is a subtle and decisive moment on the path to awakening. It is not a specific day. There are no fireworks or medals, but something stirs within him. A new silence replaces the old din. Desire is still there, but it is no longer a leader. It no longer commands, no longer pushes, no longer shouts. Now it is simply there. And in that moment, a key turns in the soul. The man who for years lived guided by desire, who pursued pleasure like someone seeking oxygen, who felt empty when he wasn't aroused, now begins to experience a new peace and, with it, a new way of looking at life. Because when sex stops ruling you, life finally starts ruling you. Work becomes more focused, relationships more relaxed, money flows freely, your body strengthens, your mind clears, opportunities present themselves. And strangely enough, you don't seize them. They come to you because the energy once consumed by fantasies now vibrates in your real field. It magnetizes, organizes, and communicates with the world. This man is ready. Carl Jung said that the unconfronted unconscious controls you, and you call it destiny. But when you confront unconscious desire, when you integrate the shadow, when you break the cycle of sexual self-sabotage, you cease to be a victim of fate and become a co-creator of reality. This is the end point of the journey towards self-mastery. You do not deny that you purify desire. You reintegrate it, and then the energy that once addicted you begins to empower you. Sex loses its throne and mission replaces it. You begin to live with meaning, order, presence, joy. Not by consuming, but by contributing. It is the joy of being, of serving, of creating, of influencing. And in this state, you no longer need to be recognized, because you have already recognized yourself. The calm of the mind becomes music. Inner peace becomes strategy. Stability becomes charm. Chastity becomes hidden power. Purity becomes an invisible sword. And the ideal woman notices this. Society notices this. All of life notices this. For sexual energy is not destroyed but consecrated. And the consecrated person is dangerous not because they attack, but because no one can buy them. They no longer need praise to keep going, nor pornography to feel pleasure. nor masturbation to ease tensions. They have found within themselves a source, a pivot, a sacred fire that does not burn, but shines. This is the end of a journey few undertake, but one every man should experience. For as long as sex is your guide, you will be a slave. But when it becomes your servant, you will be king. If this journey means anything to you, if these words have touched something latent within you, then know this: you are not alone. There is a silent community of men like you who are awakening, struggling, falling, and rising on the path of self-mastery, discipline, and inner truth. Here on the channel, every video is a sword, and every member is a warrior who refuses to live in the shadow of mediocrity. If you would like to support this mission, please consider subscribing to the channel. Not only are you helping to keep this content alive, but you're also strengthening the movement of men who have decided to move beyond trivial pleasures and aspire to something greater. Click Become a Member and follow our path, not out of vanity but with determination, because real change begins in the invisible. And if you feel it, you're already part of it.